Hello again, welcome to episode 2 of this strange Pokemon journey I've decided to embark upon. Let's continue the adventure and head on to the next route. You know, in all honesty, I didn't know how much this weird playthrough idea was going to amount to, but 2 episodes in, and already I'm pretty much enjoying myself, so hopefully you'll enjoy me commentating over this. Next up, we have a route full of trainers, and this guy is weird. He says he met us in Viridian Forest, and I can believe that because Viridian Forest had plenty of bug catchers, but for those of you who have played the remakes, Fire Red and Leaf Green, the trainers in that game all have names. And if I remember right, this bug catcher's name in Fire Red and Leaf Green never comes up in Viridian Forest in the same game, which is a little bit odd. So anyways, he's pretty much cannon fodder. Most trainers throughout the game tend to be cannon fodder. It's more about enduring all of the fights that you have to get into, rather than winning individual fights. So, let's follow Blue for a little while, because he's about to face the most epic trainer in the game. Listen to this dialogue. "Hi, I like shorts. They're comfy and easy to wear." Classic line. You know, I used to conflate the "I like shorts" line with a youngster from Gen 2 who, interestingly, also starts with a Rattata, but they are not, in fact, the same youngster. He's not to be underestimated either way, though, because, if you can believe it, this youngster actually stopped me for a little while when I was a kid, because I didn't know how to deal with his second Pokemon. His Rattata has Quick Attack, so that's interesting. Quick Attack is a move that always goes first regardless of speed, but the real threat is the Ekans. I know it's just Snake spelled backwards, but this guy is technically your first introduction to trapping moves, like Onix had in Yellow version. If you get hit with Wrap, you're stuck getting wrapped over and over again for several more turns, and it's really awful. The only way to escape this is to switch Pokemon, but if you do that, for some reason, I'm not sure if this is exclusive to Wrap or not, but if you get wrapped and you switch, then the enemy has a chance to wrap you again, and it's just an endless trap. It's really, really bad. With that, however, Blue has reached level 16 with his Squirtle, which means it's time for the playthrough's first evolution. And Blue saw it sooner than anybody else because he kept piling all of that experience onto Squirtle. So he gets to evolve to Wartortle, which means he looks a lot meaner and he has more stats and, not much else, but it looks really cool. So, moving on, we can see that Red has gotten into yet another battle. There are a lot of trainers on this route. You can avoid fighting them by not going into their line of sight, but you can't really tell how far they can see. You can certainly tell their direction, but not how far they see. Most of them are cannon fodder anyways, but I tend to want to get through areas as quickly as possible so I can catch more Pokemon. That's what Red was meant to do after all, and she's already encountered a Jigglypuff. This Pokemon was so popular in Japan that it wound up finding a spot on the roster of Super Smash Bros. I have no idea how. I don't know what compelled them to put Jigglypuff in Smash, but anyways, I'm catching another Spearow. There's a reason for that, you probably already know, but, you know, I'll leave it a surprise for the people who haven't experienced Gen 1. Anyways, I would also like to capture a Jigglypuff myself, so I eventually found one that was a high enough level to resist a peck and not, like, get knocked out straight away. Jigglypuff is really hard to train, though, because it starts only with the Sing move, which inflicts sleep status. That can surely be useful, but when it's your only move, you kind of need a damage move to go along with it. So leveling up Jigglypuff is going to be very difficult. You have to constantly switch it in and out of combat, and it has to share experience with another Pokemon. Really tough to do. Actually, throughout recording for this episode, I learned a lot about how to design a Pokemon. Like, you really need some form of damage when you first get the Pokemon in order for them to be immediately useful and start leveling up really well. But that's a story for another time. This Pokemon Center houses one of the most famous Pokemon in the game. You can purchase a Magikarp for 500, whatever the currency is. Yen, Poké-Dollars, I don't know. You know, it's crazy that they treat the Magikarp purchase as some kind of a shady scam type thing, but anybody who has played Pokemon by this point probably knows what's up with Magikarp, and if somehow you don't know, well, just put effort into leveling up your Magikarp and you might be pleasantly surprised. As for Green, you can see that he's, well, he's at least on his way. He just has to get through this, Very weirdly sprited Ekans. I have no idea what they were thinking with this one. You know, I might be underleveled, but I'm really trying to understand why people say Bulbasaur is the best starter in this game. I am just not seeing it. Well, actually, I think I know what the logic behind it is. Bulbasaur is a grass type, and the first two gyms are weak to the grass type. But, you guys know that there's other trainers in between the gyms, right? Like, this entire route and the cave up ahead, they're full of Pokemon and trainers who are resistant to the grass type, so even if you reach level 13 and learn Vine Whip, Vine Whip only has 10 uses before you have to go back to a Pokemon Center, and it's resisted by most of the enemies anyways. What was that about Bulbasaur being easy to use again? Anyways, we can finally move on to the next dungeon. This is Mount Moon, so named because you can find an item called a Moonstone inside. And we'll talk about what those are later. Somebody left a technical machine here. It is Technical Machine 12, which will teach one Pokemon Water Gun. Yes, Water Gun, which Squirtle learns naturally, so I really don't know why they put Water Gun on a TM. You'd think TMs would be important moves. Anyways, we've encountered the first of 4 new Pokemon you can find in here. This is Paris, a sort of crab with mushrooms on its back. They had some weird ideas back then, I gotta say. Anyways, I'm just gonna weaken it a little bit, and something really annoying happened with this Paris, actually. So, I had forgotten to buy more items, so I only had 4 Pokeballs here. And for some reason, if your Pokeball fails to catch a Pokemon, it's just no longer usable. I think the Pokemon just breaks free and shatters the thing everywhere. At least that's what I think happens. Anyways, I used 2 Pokeballs here, which means I only have 2 left, which means if I want to capture the remaining 3 Pokemon, I'm going to have to actually go back all the way to the town and buy some more, so see ya! That'll teach me to leave without having all of my items ready, but at least we can see what Blue is up to. So it seems he's still training Wartortle, of course. No reason to not give it even more experience points after all of that. Now, I completely forgot about this trainer. I was not looking where I was going, and I walked right into her vision range, which means, well, you can't run from trainer battles, so unfortunately I have to fight against her and her 2 grass-type Pokemon. Bad news for anybody trying to solo the game with a water-type Pokemon. You might want to avoid her if you try this yourself. But when you're trying to be the very best like no one ever was, you might have to put yourself in a disadvantageous situation every now and again. The good news is water and grass are both special type attacks, and infamously, the special stat that governs special attack also governs special defense, so I'm not taking nearly as much damage from this Oddish as I could have been in one of the other games, where they fixed this issue. There are a lot of issues like that in Gen 1, shocking I know. Anyways, let's check back in with Red. Red has found an infamous Pokemon. Zubat is known to absolutely flood every cave area across the entire series, and it's got a move that inflicts confusion, it can suck your health out. Really annoying Pokemon to deal with. But Charmander has managed to inflict burn status, so this should be a very easy capture. And there we go. Red is now the proud owner of a Pokemon that is well known for driving players batty. Because it's a bat. And now for the next Pokemon we can find in here, you can find Geodude in Mount Moon. This was one of the Pokemon used by Brock. And that's really all I can say about it. Geodude is so uninteresting that even the Pokédex says that Geodude is uninteresting. Mistaking them for boulders, people often trip on them. Yeah, there you go. Anyways, there is one last Pokemon you can find in here. It is a Clefairy. Clefairy is actually tied to the lore of Mount Moon because supposedly Clefairy landed on Earth with a meteorite that was the Moonstone, and that created Mount Moon. It's very weird. I haven't heard this lore in years. I only vaguely remember it. Interestingly, Clefairy is said to be one of the original intended mascots for Pokemon, but then Pikachu entered the picture and Clefairy got kinda sidelined. As it happens, I actually own a copy of the Pokemon Master Trainer board game from years and years ago. This is classic Gen 1 stuff. And in that game, Clefairy is a possible starter, along with the 3 starters from the original Red and Blue games, Pikachu and, I think, Meowth? I think I remember that right. I guess I could dig out my copy and look. It would be really weird if they let you start with Meowth, but there you go. I really cut it close with the Clefairy, Both of us ended up in red health, which is what that beeping noise is. That's the low health warning, and it's even more annoying than the one from Zelda. It's so annoying, in fact, that it overrides basically every other sound effect and actually reduces some of the lag in the game, which is really weird. So speedrunners actually want to be at very low health when they are fighting through all of these trainers. That's gotta be risky and dangerous. And here in this room, we have our first encounter with a member of the nefarious Pokemon gang, Team Rocket. These guys actually carry whips. There are some trainers in this game that actually carry whips, which was not repeated very often in future generations, believe me. Yes, they say Pokemon is a kid's game. You've got the Mafia, you've got whips, you've got all kinds of weird stuff in Gen 1. It's just nuts. So, Team Rocket is up to something illegal, obviously. Let me check what that was. What are they doing in here again? They're, stealing fossils nobody wants? Is that what they're doing? Like, unless those fossils were owned by some government or something, I don't see how this is criminal or illegal. Obviously, they're thugs and they use questionable Pokemon types, but I don't know. Anyways, you can see that this one is using another Ekans, which has Wrap all the same. I'm lucky it didn't decide to use it, but I am unlucky at the same time because I got poisoned, which is really bad because I only have one antidote left. You never want to be caught poisoned without an antidote, because then you have to rush back to the Pokemon Center, and it's really a desperate situation, which is kind of interesting, actually. Anyways, this little adventure was all worth it, because now Charmander is going to evolve into his second form as well. We got all the starter evolutions in this video, or the first stage evolutions anyways. There's still the second stage evolution, which is coming in 20 more levels or so. Anyways, Red was the only one to find this room, which means she is going to be the only one to find the 2 items in this room. First up, we have an item hidden on this rock. I think you could find this one yourself pretty easily, because it's the only rock designed like that in this room. And the other item is a TM. The TM contains a very good normal type move that most Pokemon can learn, and it's a decent replacement for Scratch or Tackle. It is called Mega Punch, and I don't think its accuracy is perfect, so I don't know if I'm going to use it on anybody. The other item is an Ether, which will recover your power points, or PP, make any joke you want, and those determine how many times you can use each of your moves. Anyways, meanwhile, Green has found some opponents that he can actually beat with Bulbasaur. And oh look, Bulbasaur has hit level 16, which means he's going to get his evolution as well. I think I mentioned already that I got all of the starter evolutions, so I kind of spoiled that this was coming. But come on, spoiling the original generation of Pokemon, that's kind of a difficult thing to do anymore. So yes, Bulbasaur has become Ivysaur. Evolving actually makes you learn most of your level up moves slower, for the most part anyways. There are probably some exceptions. But, I guess that means I'm going to have to wait even longer to get the good moves for Ivysaur, which is probably not a good thing, but I kind of need the stat boost too, so I don't know what to do here. Anyways, moving on to Blue, he's almost made it to the end of the cave. And there's going to be a couple more trainers in the way, because we do have Team Rocket running around and trying to steal fossils, I guess, which I really can't be certain how evil or unethical that actually is, but if we have to defeat them to get through, we have to defeat them to get through. I mean, there's not a lot of reason a bunch of 10-year-olds would try to take on the crime syndicate that uses Pokemon for nefarious deeds, but if they're in the way, I guess there's no other option but to get right past them, right? You want to be the best, you have to get through every obstacle. Alright, so this rocket should not be that difficult to defeat. They're all called rockets, which probably sounds really weird. I mean, it's not like they've got rockets on them. That would be pretty nice, though. I mean, if you're called Team Rocket, you should probably be, like, touting rocket launchers or something, I don't know. I mean, according to the TV show, they do in fact have guns in this universe. At least, they don't have guns in the original version. That was kind of airbrushed out in most of the English episodes. I guess we can say for certain that this universe has very effective gun control if the criminals can't get their hands on it through a black market or something. Anyways, what are we doing right now? We've got a random Geodude that decided to get in my way. You're getting water gunned. I am so sorry. You're not worth it. You've got a quad weakness, and Blue doesn't like to use any Pokemon with a quad weakness. Anyways, there is also a hidden moonstone right here. I can't really imagine anyone figured that one out without a guide, because there is an item that lets you detect hidden items, but it comes way later. And this guy apparently thinks the fossils both belong to him. Well, you're in our way, so we gotta get rid of you. Super Nerd, that's a really weird name for a trainer class. Although, since he uses poison types, maybe that's a jab at a certain kind of person, i.e. me. I'm offended. I'm going to drown you in water for that. So this guy has 2 poison types. The first is Grimer, which is literal sludge. Very creative design, right? But if you want real creative designs, check out his second Pokemon. Say hello to, we're going to be fighting this one as red, Voltorb, the upside-down Pokeball. Not even upside down, it's a Pokeball with eyes. Yeah, some of the Gen 1 designs, not exactly complicated or maybe even uncreative, but I wouldn't call most of the designs in Gen 1 uncreative, because even the simplistic designs have their purposes in the game. I mean, look at Coughing. Coughing is actually weird because in Gen 1, the skull was above its face. And in Yellow version and all games thereafter, the skull is actually below the face, which is interesting. Anyway, he goes down, you just have to use a bunch of special attacks to get through him. It's really easy. And your reward for his defeat is choosing one of the 2 fossils to take with you. Not that I want either of them. The Pokemon you get from these aren't exactly good, but if you want to collect all the Pokemon, you have to actually play the game twice because you can only pick one of the fossils. Red is going to choose the Helix fossil for reasons. Definitely no relation to anything Helix related, I'm certain. Praise Helix. Anyways, the others chose the Dome fossil for no other reason than it's not the Helix fossil, and Pikachu actually gets bopped out of the way if he's standing where the trainer is going to walk. That's actually a little bit funny. But that's not it for Yellow version. Yellow version in particular took out the rocket just before the fossil guy and added a new one after the fossil guy. And believe me, they have a tendency to show up exactly where you don't want them to, which is just about everywhere. You might recognize them from somewhere and, oh, actually there was an encounter right before I ran into them. The encounter rates in caves can be very, very annoying because every tile can generate an encounter. It's not like you can just avoid going into the grass. So, these 2 are based on the characters Jesse and James from the TV show. Yes, Yellow has a number of references to the TV show, and these 2 are going to pop up every now and again to cause us some trouble. Notably, the 3 Pokemon they have can never be caught in Yellow version. I guess Ash would just never even think of using another Ekans. I can't believe this game didn't need even more of them. Well, luckily we can just use Thunder Wave to paralyze it. That makes dealing with Wrap a little bit easier, because sometimes it'll just randomly lose its turn trying to Wrap. And even if it doesn't, you can switch to another Pokemon to force it to roll again. Paralysis always has a 50% chance of causing a Pokemon to lose their turn, and it lowers speed, so that's also helpful. In fact, even were these guys to cure the paralysis, the speed drop would still apply, which I think is just, you know, yet another Gen 1 jank bug, right? So Ekans is finally out of the way. That's a wrap for him. And now we face Meowth, who in the TV show could talk, but I guess in the game they didn't want to go with that. No talking Pokemon allowed in the games. Now, unfortunately, I made a very huge mistake here. I should have swapped out Pikachu because that would have gotten rid of all of those defense drops from when Ekans was using Leer over and over again. So, I've got to bring in Mankey, and he's actually going to do a very good job here. One-shotting Meowth. That is mad impressive. Now, unfortunately, Mankey has to deal with Coughing all on his own, because I don't think I have many other Pokemon that could do a good job here. Coughing is a poison type, which means he's going to resist the fighting type. I don't know how that works, really. I guess you don't want to touch something that's toxic, and fighting types, they make contact with the enemy very often. But yeah, we'll just scratch him, and that somehow does more damage than a very hard kick. Somehow. Of course, I also did use Leer to lower his defense, but a single Leer doesn't really do a whole lot in my experience. You kind of want to use it 2 times before you start seeing some real results. And I've been poisoned again, this time by Smog. Well, that's what you get for playing with Smog, you just end up becoming toxic. Now, actually, I don't have that move quite yet, but there is a move called Toxic. You know, now that I think about it, Jesse and James aren't even referred to by their names in this game. It's kind of weird. They're just called Rocket like every other grunt in the game, which kind of makes me think they were making a jab at Jesse and James' incompetence, because despite coming up with some of the most amazing technological advancements, they never succeed in trying to do whatever they are doing. Although if their entire goal was to poison me so that my last Pokemon faints before I make it to the Pokemon Center, I have 4 other Pokemon, so I'll at least make it that far. I don't know what they were trying to do there. Anyways, now that we're outside, there is another item that we can pick up on the way to the next town. And it's another TM, but it's one of the worst ones ever. I have no idea what they were thinking with some of the TM choices in this game, because you've got Water Gun, Bide, and TM4, which is Whirlwind. In Gen 1, Whirlwind just lets you escape random encounters. I don't know what they were thinking, making that a TM. You could just run away from encounters or do anything else. Speaking of encounters, Red has some capturing to do. In this area, you can find Ekans and capture one for yourself. So now you can be the one rapping everybody. And it's exclusive to the red version as well. You cannot get this in blue, green, yellow, none of those versions. Red only. And as for blue, he's actually capturing something. What is this? In blue version, you can find Sandshrew in that patch of grass, so blue is going to catch one because none of the other versions can get one. Well, yellow can, but yellow is sticking to Ash's Pokemon only. For now, anyways. Alright, so Green has made it into Cerulean City, which is the second town with a gym, and he's going into this person's backyard for some reason. That's very weird. What is he doing? He's looking around the ground and... Oh no, he found the drugs! Green! No, don't do this! You can't be addicted to drugs now! Anyways, if you head north out of Cerulean City, you will run into your rival. Yes, he has a very bad habit of just showing up when you're least expecting him to, but at least you have to actually leave the city to encounter this one. He's not going to be as kind as to give us an opportunity to heal at a Pokemon Center all the time. This fight can actually be more difficult than you might imagine if you are unprepared for it. See, the rival this time around starts with Pidgeotto, which has Quick Attack, which is one thing that's annoying, but the most annoying part is that Pidgeotto still has Sand Attack. Having your accuracy lowered is still one of the most annoying things to have to face in this game, and even if you switch out to get rid of the accuracy debuffs, the enemy could simply use Sand Attack again once you've switched your new Pokemon in. And then you'll have your accuracy lowered again. Luckily, Pidgeotto was kind enough to not use Sand Attack for the most part, but he did do a pretty big number on Charmeleon. Next up, the rival sends out Abra, which is a Pokemon that can do nothing but use Teleport, which allows it to escape random encounters. However, this is a trainer battle and not a random encounter, so it's not going to work. Since Abra does nothing but Teleport, you can use this time to heal up in preparation for the remaining 2 Pokemon after you've dealt with Abra. Now, I wanted to catch my own Abra, but as I said, the only move it knows allows it to escape random encounters, so you'll run into the thing and it just immediately teleports away. Now, you might think to hit it with a status effect in order to make it easier to capture, like maybe put it to sleep so it can't do anything and you can just wail on it until you've captured it. This thing is faster than a lot of the Pokemon that can even inflict status effects at this point in the game, so it's actually a lot of RNG to capture one. You have to just toss the ball and hope you got lucky. But here I am talking about capturing while there's a battle going on. Next up he has a Rattata, which has leveled up enough to learn Hyper Fang, which is a very powerful move for this point in the game. If you are not a defensive Pokemon, be very wary of running into it like Spearow just did. Anyways, Spearow was at least able to do enough damage to where I can use Ember on it one more time, and it'll go down. And then we just have to deal with a leveled up starter, and this is going to be the tough part for certain. It's a good thing that he's only level 17 and hasn't even evolved yet, because that would make things even more difficult due to heightened stats. But there just aren't a lot of electric and grass Pokemon that you can actually capture in order to use them on this fight. Obviously there's Pikachu, but I didn't exactly level up mine. That would have taken a while. So I just have to tough it out. I have to use a bunch of scratching, and I actually got very lucky here. There's another critical hit, and then he misses the tackle. Very lucky. Now, moving on to the blue version of this fight, it goes basically the same as the red version of the fight, except blue never picked up any flying types, so he's going to have a little bit of trouble with Bulbasaur, but then it is Bulbasaur. Vine Whip is still a very weak move, even if it is doing super effective damage. And Blue has evolved his starter. Well, they've all evolved their starters, so this isn't as difficult as you'd think it would be. And as for Green, well, Green just had absolutely no way of doing real damage to Charmander, so he had to get a little bit creative. And by creative, I mean drugs and lots of them, because he actually taught Bide to Ivysaur. Remember Bide? Brock was using it. It does double the damage that the enemy does to you during the period of doing absolutely nothing. Well, it turns out that Bide is actually not as bad as you might think, because in this generation, it completely ignores accuracy checks and always hits. So if you get hit with Sand Attack, you know, it actually doesn't matter. You can just use Bide, and then you'll be doing damage basically like that. Bide is actually good in this situation. I really don't know what to say about that. It's kind of weird. Now, as for Yellow version, it's basically the same. Yellow version gives the rivals Spearow and Sandshrew instead of Abra and Pidgeotto, which is a little bit more manageable. So the only real threat is Eevee, who has Sand Attack still, so you still have to deal with accuracy drops. And so you can see the reason Pikachu is getting the KO here is because I had to switch off of Mankey to get rid of the accuracy drops. Very annoying. Anyways, with that out of the way, we can move on to the next route, which means more battles, more Pokemon to capture, and we will be able to meet a Pokemaniac. Whatever that term is supposed to mean, I think it's a pun. It probably is a pun. There are a lot of puns in this game. Smell ya later, he says, as he will say many more times. Also try checking Pikachu's mood after doing certain things. You can get some very interesting reactions out of him that you might not expect. And now we move on to the Nugget Bridge, as it is called. Not exactly much of a bridge, there appears to be grass just to the right of it. But if you beat all 5 trainers on this bridge, you get a special reward, and, unfortunately, all of them are basically cannon fodder. We've got a bug catcher with a level 14 Caterpie. Seriously, you can evolve your bugs now, dude. They're not going to be too difficult for me if you evolve them. I mean, I don't know what's going on here with this guy. Well, I guess they'll have to evolve eventually if they ever want to start winning. But anyways, after 5 very uninteresting fights, we get a Nugget, which is, I think in Japan it's known as a gold ball, and the item icons in the later generations make it a gold ball, which is kind of a joke in Japan, I guess. You can make some money by selling it, and it's not really that good for anything else. So, I guess I will do that later. And it turns out that the final trainer on the bridge was a Team Rocket member this entire time. How did nobody recognize him? That uniform's gotta make him stand out really well. Anyways, you didn't need me to show you yet another fight with an Ekans, right? Yeah, yet another one. Anyways, Yellow version has another shout out to the anime here. This character will give you a Charmander for free. You can actually get the 3 starters from Red and Blue for free in Yellow version because Ash caught all 3 of those Pokemon in the show. Well, caught is a bit of a stretch for Ash. I don't exactly remember him getting Charmander that easily, though. I know this because the episode where he got Charmander is one of my favorites in the whole series. Mostly because Team Rocket actually succeeded in capturing Pikachu in a red balloon. You know, I think Team Rocket, with that invention, obsoleted Pokeballs, but we never see that kind of thing ever again, at least to my knowledge. I didn't watch the entire series. Oh, right, we're capturing things. So Red picked up an Oddish, which is a Pokemon that is surprisingly useful at this point in the game. Now, the key to making a useful Pokemon is to, first of all, make it an actually good Pokemon with some decent starting moves and all of that, but also give it some enemies that it can actually fight against for EXP, which in this area there is. There are plenty of trainers with Geodudes and Onyxes and things like that, and I tried to capture an Abra, but that didn't work, and that was my last Pokeball at the time, so, I gave up on that. I'll have to get it later. And we have an interesting TM here because you have to actually lure the trainer away from that area in order to get in behind him and pick it up. If you beat the trainer but didn't lure him far enough away, then you'll have to wait until later to pick up this TM, but you can still get it. So, this scene is available in all versions of the game, however in Yellow version, Pikachu has some honestly pretty cutesy reactions to it. It seems that there is a Pokemon in this house, or is there? It is actually the Pokemaniac that we heard about, Bill, who also invented the PC storage system, so pretty smart guy. However, he seems to have messed up an experiment and combined himself with a Pokemon. And such experiments will never be mentioned ever again. Unless you play a lot of Pokemon fan games, because there is one in which he is able to create fused Pokemon. This was classic stuff, but that fan game is, the original incarnation of this isn't exactly available anymore, but other fans have picked up on the idea and tried it again. Also, this Pikachu face, this should be the new surprise Pikachu meme. Anyways, as a reward for helping him, Bill gives us a ticket to a boat cruise, and to be totally honest, I'm not sure I want to get on that boat, because every time I hear about a cruise ship, it usually involves some kind of an accident. I'm not saying that because that's what happened in the show, I'm saying that because, more often than not, cruise ships, kind of not the safest place in the world. Anyways, with that out of the way, there's only one real task left in Cerulean City, and that's to take on the Pokemon Gym. But before that, I forgot to pick this up at first, there is actually a chance to get a Bulbasaur for free in Yellow version, because, again, Ash captured all the starters in the show, so clearly the player should get these for free in Yellow version, and that does make it convenient. You don't have to restart the game over and over again to pick up all of the starters. But one thing that's disappointing is that Bulbasaur had a unique NPC sprite, but that sprite is not used in the menu for some reason. It's really strange. Alright, the second Pokemon Gym. Water-themed by the looks of it. You got a swimmer in the water and a trainer that you actually have to fight before the gym leader this time around. I'm only showing this fight because she has a really weird Pokemon. She doesn't exactly look dressed for the swimming pool, but she has a Goldeen, which for some reason knows the move Peck, a flying move, on a fish. It doesn't really seem all that, in theme, I guess. Anyways, the second gym leader is a lady named Misty, and, you know, I didn't point this out before, but Brock actually wasn't wearing a shirt in the red and blue versions, and in the yellow version he is. And Misty's kind of the same. She's got a swimsuit in the originals, but not in Yellow version. They changed her design to match the show again. Anyways, I brought in Oddish for this fight because, of course, grass beats water, and, you know, if you were expecting a difficult fight out of Misty, then I don't know what to tell you. You basically just send in a grass type and you pretty much win. Misty likes to use items to buff her defenses, which doesn't make a lot of sense because grass and electric are both special type attacks, so they will hit past any defenses she has. Also, wasn't Brock the defensive trainer and Misty is the offensive trainer? Doesn't really make sense. Also, Oddish's Absorb attack actually drains health out of the enemy, which is super helpful. I don't know why I never used this Pokemon before. He's even able to inflict a couple of status effects if you level him up as well. I guess I had a bad habit of trying to solo the entire game with the starters back in the day, which is actually pretty simple if you use Wartortle or even Ivysaur. Misty never seems to use any of her water attacks if she can't do neutral or super effective damage against your Pokemon, which is, understandable but kind of lame at the same time. I think she really needed something other than damaging moves to actually do anything here. However, I did not level up Bulbasaur in Yellow version, so I did have to use Pikachu and Mankey against her, and water actually does neutral damage to electric instead of being not very effective. I didn't know that. Mankey, on the other hand, has learned Karate Chop, which is a move with a high crit rate. It does a lot of critical hits, and in this game, critical hits ignore any defensive buffs your opponent might have. And for those of you wondering why it's doing neutral damage against the Water and Psychic type, well, Karate Chop was a normal type move in this generation for reasons I cannot fathom. Who looked at Karate Chop and thought, hey, this is a normal type move, and not a fighting type move? I don't get it, but it worked out nicely in the end. We get the TM for Bubble Beam, which is a decently powerful water type move, way better than Water Gun at least. Oh, and before I forget, the other TMs I picked up in this episode are TM45, which is Thunder Wave, very useful, and TM19, which is Seismic Toss, a move that does damage equal to your current level. Not so useful. Of course, after seeing Bide be actually useful, I imagine Seismic Toss is going to turn out to be useful somewhere in this playthrough. At any rate, that wraps it up for episode 2 of this very strange and interesting Pokemon adventure. At least I hope it's interesting. And strange, but mostly interesting. Next time, our heroes will hit the next city and see what even more wacky shenanigans they can get up to. Just as long as it doesn't take forever to actually capture that Abra, because I do need to go back and try and get him for, many reasons, to be honest. Stay tuned for that. See you later, everybody.